This is a cave. This is a man cave where I'm sitting right now. It's where I spend a lot of my private time. And maybe the camera will do a just fade in, fade out a little bit later on. I've got tons of books in here. I read incessantly. I read for leisure. I read for knowledge. I read just for the sake of reading. Straight ahead over there is a big screen TV. I watch news and sports and science. I love Discovery Channel, Discovery Science, those kind of things. On my left over here, we have an old-fashioned phonograph. When us people hear what I would by phonograph, that's where you play LPs and 45s and stuff like that. And we have a collection of old LPs from my father. All those were from Elford Williams. He just loved music, all genre of music he loved. And he encouraged us just to listen. I mentioned before that where we grew up in Trinidad, back then there was no running water, no electricity. And every Sunday evening, we tuned into a radio station that played mostly classical music. On my right over there, I've got tons of CDs. That's all classical music right through there. In the corner over here, I've got some old classic books. I bought these books when Shelley was about, well, he was still in the womb. Isaac Asimov. We got a complete works of Shakespeare, Jack London, Sherlock Holmes, and a few other classic writers. So I spend a lot of time in this place and I really, really enjoy it. So I might just come in here and just turn or tune out the whole world because I'm in my own world here. I'm at peace. Behind me, I have my prayer room. I segue into there sometimes just for quiet time where I can connect and reconnect with an awesome power that some refer to as God. Some refer to this awesome power as Allah. There are different names for this potent entity from my perspective that created all life. I give way to all that. And I also respect other people's perspective on spirituality. I'll be the first one to tell you that I really don't believe in religion. Let me say it one more time. I do not believe in religion. And I hope members of my family, and this video is being made for my grandkids and other great grands down the road. And one day you'll probably see this and hear that I said this myself. I believe religion is man-made. I also believe that it divides people. Anything that does not bring us together as humanity, as one, and seek to divide us, I have issues with that. I believe in spirituality, and that's a different thing. I also believe that humankind is essentially good. I also believe that circumstances shape people's existence. There are a bunch of people who steal, for example, because they have nothing to eat. There's some inalienable rights that every human should have a chance to live and to celebrate. One of those things is to eat, have something to eat when the day comes, a few times a day. Have shelter and clothing, have comfort of family. I believe there are certain structures are in place to prevent others from achieving that. Currently, the planet has over 8 billion people. And I believe and I know in my spirit that about 1% of the population controls more than 90% of the wealth. Wealth, from my perspective, is nothing more than accumulated time, people's time. For example, if one goes to work at McDonald's for $7.25 an hour, $8 an hour, for 8 hours a day and 40 hours a week, and they're worth more than that, and most people work in those establishments are worth more than that, then somebody's capitalizing on their life force, on their energy. That's how some people get rich and some people remain poor. I also believe that the system is set up exactly for that. That's why you have millionaires and billionaires and multi-millionaires and multi-billionaires. And at the same time, in the same countries across the spectrum, across the planet, you have people who live in abject squalor and poverty. There's something called greed. Greed is an evil spirit. And unfortunately, there's too many people who are possessed by it. All they know to do is to take, as it relates to give. And there are people who sit in positions of power as priests and pundits and imams and so-called holy men of God who have billions at their disposal, and yet you have the downtrodden in the street that has nothing. In the Christian faith, in some evangelical settings, they speak about just praising God and worshiping, but they also preach something called a prosperity gospel, where these so-called men of the cloth have private jets and multi-million-dollar homes and fancy cars, and the congregation have to give up part of their little pittance every Sunday so that these men can live these lavish lifestyles. And they expect people like me to believe that's of God. That's not of God from my perspective. I believe it's wrong. When you tread on the poor so you can become rich and live a rich existence, there has to be something totally and absolutely evil about that. Hopefully these men will find their correct places. Hopefully they'll see the beggar on the street and offer bread or some clothing, or build them places where they can live. For those of us who believe in God, yeah, I believe in God as well. I do not believe in a white Jesus. Historically, we know, well, biblical teachings, where it came from. And the Bible speaks of, they give the description of the Christ when he came as a man and where he lived, where he hid out in Africa. And if you have entities who paint pictures of a white Jesus, knowing the truth that he was a man of color, and perpetuating that lie, they're not right and they're not righteous. If they truly believe in the Christ, that he came as a man in the flesh, they will honor everything about him, as opposed to create this false impression, this false face, this false doctrine. I don't need another human to teach me spirituality. Let me say it one more time. I do not need another human being to teach me spirituality. Another human being can teach me about his or her religion and how they practice and how they worship. But true spirituality can only come from God. Man cannot teach that. When I pray, I pray to an entity that's bigger than everything. I believe that implicitly. I do not believe in giving a 10% of my earnings to any establishment. I know how that was established back then. I do not believe it applies to current day activities. I will give anything and everything. I've done that many times. I believe giving of my earnings is a personal and private decision. It has nothing to do with any preacher, pastor, or minister. If I feel free to give 1% of what I have, I'll do that. Or 10, or 15, or 20, or 50, or 100%, as the Holy Power moves me. But I don't want any man dictating to me when to give and how much to give. I have issues with that as well. For those who know me, they know that I have given a lot, and I will continue to give, but not to anyone whose agenda is to embellish himself or herself. And I see too much of that. I've seen too much of that over the 66 years of my life. So yes, I believe in God. I believe in a spiritual being. I believe I'm an extension of that spirit. There's some who they'll teach you, well, yes, you're a child of God. But when you claim your royalty and your royalness, when you claim your kingdom, when you let people know that, yeah, if I'm a child of God, then I am God-like. People have issues with that. They think it's sacrilege. How can I not be godly if I'm a child of God? And this is mostly for my offsprings. I want you all to think about that. Let no one, nobody, define for you who you are or who you should be. You define that yourself. Let no one define for you who you are. You make that decision yourself on who you are. What I'm sharing will give you a little bit of where you came from. And at the same time, it should also allow you to aim for higher heights so you can become who you want to become without reservations. Without reservations. Always take the high road. Seek the best. Be good for goodness sake. Learn skills that will benefit you in this life. And of course, and beyond. Learn a trade. Doesn't matter what the trade is, learn something. Learn how to defend and protect yourself. For all my life, I know I've been a warrior spirit. I think I'm born that way. So when I segued to the military, I don't think it was by chance. And I tested myself to extremes sometimes, to the point where I felt as though I was superhuman. I still feel that way to a certain degree right now. I still feel as though I can do and accomplish a whole lot of things. And I can, because I believe it's a mindset. It's a mindset. And I also believe that the only boundaries, the only perimeters, the only hurdles that we encounter in life are the ones that we set for ourselves. So for my offsprings, don't nobody set no parameters or no boundaries, no boxes to contain you. When I left here on this island, St. Croix, to join the military, my father, Elford Williams, said a few words to me. He said, son, I was 18 at the time. He said, son, the sky is the limit. You can be and become anything you want to be and become. It's up to you. Some of it takes sacrifices. You got to sacrifice some time, effort, resources to make it happen. But you can do it. He said, go and live your dream and be who you want to become. And that's what I did. I took that I took that advice to heart. And I said, yeah, I can do this. I can jump out of a plane. I can become a special forces soldier. On today of all days, I'm talking about it. 11/11/2022, Veterans Day. And then many of you say, well, yeah, thank you for your service. And we appreciate that as veterans. I don't think a lot of people appreciate what it takes to serve in the military, how many things you have to set aside. You have to sacrifice somebody's life. A lot of people died in combat. I've got one brother, Maurice Williams. Maurice was 5 years older than I am. And he died in uniform in Germany, a car accident. We believe that he was set up. Maurice did some time in the military jail because he just couldn't conform to racism and being downtrodden, even though the military is supposed to be a place where you can go and there's equality across the spectrum. It doesn't happen that way because people join the military from backgrounds where racism is a norm. And you can't really leave something like that behind. You can change, you can conform to something new, but that takes some doing, it takes some time. I encountered racism in the military. At one time, I almost killed a man. It happened in basic training. And we were taking care of our boots and clothes and stuff, get ready for the next day. And this man was sitting on the step, big, hulking farm boy. Back then I was 140 pounds. He had to be like 240. Massive human being. He and his brother were both in the military at the same time, basic training. And it was my turn, my day to clean, sweep and mop. And he was sitting on the stairs in the barracks, polishing his boots. And I approached him from the bottom of the stairs. I said, can you let me by, please? I need to go upstairs and get the cleaning stuff. He didn't respond. So I stepped over his leg to go upstairs. And he pushed me down the stairs. I've always told people, if you see me yelling and screaming when there's an altercation, you're good, you're safe. If I go quiet, and that applies to this present time in my life, if I go quiet, run, because I am plotting. I'm calculating how do I take you down. So I pick myself off the floor, I look at the man, and very calmly I said to him, you're bigger and stronger than I am. If I engage in a fight with you now, you probably kill me. So I'm not going to fight you. However, you will die in your sleep tonight. And the guy opened his eyes really wide because he expected me to, fire back at him. Because when he pushed me down the stairs, he said, who told you you can step over my legs, boy? I said, you will die tonight. I went upstairs, I got broom and mop, and I got a length of rope and tucked it into my pockets. Came back downstairs, did my sweeping and mopping while I'm plotting how I can handle this big hulking brute. And he was in a bunk right next to his brother. Two big farm boys, brothers. And I said, I've told myself, if I take on one, I have to take on the other one. I said, but first, let me take care of one and figure out down the road how to take care of the next. So we finished up all our chores. Bedtime was and the lights were like 9:30, 10 o'clock. And then you have to spend an hour on guard duty. People take turns for guard duty. So 9:30, I got my piece of rope. I tuck it under my pillow. And I sat on my bunk and waited for the minutes to tick by, preparing to kill this man. 11 o'clock came and he saw me sitting there, and he was sitting on his bunk, refusing to go to sleep because he knew, already told him he's going to die. He didn't know how he was going to die, but he knew he was going to die that night. Midnight came and the guards keep changing. And a little bit before midnight, the guy who was on guard duty, he's like, man, this can't go on all night. Because I'm still awake, and this other man is awake. And then the drill sergeant came to check on everybody, make sure everything's okay. And as soon as he walked through the door, he said to the drill sergeant, "Drill sergeant, I think Williams want to kill somebody tonight, right?" I'm like, "He's not going to rat me out. I ain't killed nobody yet, but I really intended to kill this. I intended to put this rope around his neck while he's asleep and gently bring it over his neck and then yank on it as hard as I can, tied off to the post of the bed to suffocate him." That was my plan. So the guard said, he said, "Williams is trying to kill somebody tonight." So I'm like, this guy gonna rat on me, man. Drill Sergeant White said, "What the hell is going on?" Well, he said, "Williams." And he cussed, this man cussed at everything and everybody. Back in them days, you could cuss at the trainees. "Get in my effing office right now. Let me talk to you." So I go in the man's office. He said, "What's this going on here? You want to kill somebody?" I said, "Yep." I said, "Yeah. I ain't done to take him out." He said, "Son, are you crazy?" I said, "No, I'm not." He said, "We are training to go to Vietnam. You may end up in Vietnam. And Woodard right there, he may be the one watching your back." I said, "Not if he's dead," right? Just casually and calmly, I'm talking to the drill sergeant. He said, "What happened?" I told him the story of the man pushed me down the stairs, called me boy and stuff like that. And the DI, a black man, he said, "Son, you can't go around killing people like that. Especially your own." I said, "He's not my own." I said, "He's my enemy." He said, "No, son, no." He said, "That's your buddy. He's supposed to be a buddy. You're supposed to watch his back, and he watch yours." I said, "Well, where I came from, we don't tolerate stuff like that." I said, "I know about you, but not where I came from." I said, "I was born in Trinidad. Spent a couple of years of my life in St. Croix, Virgin Islands." I said, "We don't tolerate that kind of nonsense there." He said, "Son, you cannot kill him. You go to jail." And I'm like, "Okay, right." He said, "Let me handle it. Could you allow me to handle it?" I said, "Yeah, that's okay. You go ahead and you handle it. But if it happens again," I said, "I'll take him out. I'm telling you straight up. You handle it, drill sergeant." It's okay. He said, "Don't get your ass in bed and sleep." It's okay. And he called Woodard back into his office, and he chewed that guy out for like 2 hours straight. I felt sorry for the guy after a while. Next day, the guy came to me and apologized. And he became pretty much my bodyguard. Big, hulking brute of a white man from Alabama. I'm talking about 1975. Right. So this was my mentality then. And that warrior spirit lives in me still. It's one of the reasons I saw no issues with joining the 82nd Airborne Division and becoming a reconnaissance commando. Those skills still live with me. Also driven by my spirituality, knowing that there's an awesome power that watches over me, and encourage a strong sense of self, unrelenting faith in God, and just just believing in myself to accomplish whatever I set out to do. I've always been like that. I was sharing with my wife recently. I said, I think I got some of these traits from my father, because when he worked at the refinery, he was, I mentioned, maintenance superintendent, but he could fabricate anything. He could make anything work. He was a fabricator, welder, builder, you name it, he could do it. I adopted quite a bit of that. So they call me the MacGyver of the family. I can MacGyver anything. How do you make something work? And I still stand on that belief. So my kids know that I'm capable of those things, and I encourage them to do the same thing, because there are times when you don't have the necessary tools or supplies to make something happen. So you create and you invent and you make things happen. So back to the spirituality thing. Talk a little bit about my mother now. My mother was a deep, very deep spiritual woman. And I learned a lot from her. Again, she's half indigenous woman from the Caribbean, Carib. And her father was of African descent. My mother, deep spiritual connections. And that lady I heard her speak in tongues. Never learned Hindi, but she can speak in Hindu tongues. And she can predict things. You'll go to her, she'll go in a trance, tell you everything about the past, present, and future. She was like that. And then she was a bushwoman, in the sense that she knew all the different herbs to help people with any issue you can think of. And the village where we grew up in Trinidad, I mentioned before that it was far away from the hospitals. So she became the bushwoman of the village. I don't care what the issue was. For some people who had difficulty conceiving, men with prostate problems, skin conditions, stomach problems, whatever it was, she knew an herb to take care of that. And she passed those things on to me, because I think I was probably the most willing of my siblings to learn these things. And with that, I segued into some spiritual teachings. She was of the spiritual Baptist faith. I was baptized in a church in Kentucky. My wife and I were the only two black people there. But I was baptized by a white man in a church in Kentucky. But I always worshiped with my mother's spiritual Baptist family. And that's where my spiritual growth took off. And I've seen and done some things I can't begin to tell you that just blew my mind, just fascinating things. I believed in it, I still do. And I will not change that part of my life for anything, because it helped shape me. It shaped me. It also helped shape my family connections. Not just my wife and my children, my grandchildren, but also my siblings and their families as well. So again, I believe in a true and living God. But again, I don't give way to religion in any form. People, it's their prerogative, I guess, to do those things. And I respect that. I am not of that ilk, because I think I know better. I think I know better. I've visited many churches and synagogues and mosques and temples where people practice their faith. And it works for them. It works for them. And again, I respect it. But I'm of a singular mindset. I ain't no problem worship with you. But I'm not going to go down that road with you where once there's division, or from the perspective that mine is better than yours. I don't believe that's what God wants. I really don't believe that. And there are people who try to kill and murder and maim in the name of God. Yeah, I got issues with that as well. I'm going to segue from spirituality now and talk a bit about my immediate family. My wife, my 2 sons, my 2 daughters-in-law, and my 4 grandchildren. I met my wife while we were going to the secondary school in Trinidad. We became boyfriend, girlfriend. I was 13, she was 12 years old. We got married when we were 20, I was 23 and she was 22. So we've been married for 43, going on 44 years now. It's been quite a journey, quite a ride. I'm not going to sit here and tell you everything has been a bed of roses. Everything has been peaches and cream. No. I don't know of any relationship where everything is just perfect. Actually, it wasn't meant to be perfect in the sense that here are 2 people who are individuals trying to come together as a unit, growth and development and love and family, for richer, for poor, better or for worse. That takes work. That takes time. Anybody who tells you that they have a perfect relationship is probably lying to you. There's some very, very, very good relationship, very sound relationship. But there's no perfection in that. And the main reason there's no perfection in it is because we are not perfect beings. None of us are perfect. Actually, we are perfectly imperfect. And as you grow in a relationship, right, all the idiosyncrasies come out. And the person you thought you knew while you're courting, that's a different person as you begin to grow together. A wise man told me one time, and it took me a while to process this. He said, true love, really, really true, passionate love, doesn't blossom until people reach 40, 50, 60 years old. I'm like, I mean, are you crazy? I said, what are you saying to me? He said, yeah, you think about it. In the spring of your life, I mean, you're beautiful and handsome. You got hair on your head, teeth in your mouth, almost perfect physical features. So you're married and you're attracted to the beauty, the superficial beauty and handsomeness of each other. When you hit 40, 50, 60, things begin to change. And people lose their hair on their heads and lose the teeth in their mouth. All right, they get big belly, right, and put on weight. All right, yeah, they start looking different, and then the body begins to fail. The thing about the body that I'll tell you as a doctor, the body is designed to fail. Fail it will. It has to fail. You're not going to live forever. It will fail. So here you are at age 50 or 60, and this prize catch you had when you were 20s or 30s is no longer there. In her place or his place, you have wrinkles and sagging features and bags on the eyes. And like me, I got hair in my ears. My grandkids, Jazzy especially, goes, Papa, how come you have so much hair in your ears, right? Right? And no, I gotta use the scissors to trim the gray hair coming out of my nose. And because my eyebrow gets so bushy, my wife has a clipper, she go clip my eyebrows for me. And then I start getting some gray hair on my arms. On my head is I say about 50% bald. I still got some hair on the sides. Right? So I've changed. The person I was back then is not the person I am right now. Same thing for my wife. And then people develop health problems. Some people have difficulty walking, difficulty speaking as a result of a stroke, dysphagia. Some people have, is that dysphagia? Well, I'll come back to that. Some people have difficulty hearing. I mean, you begin to lose your ability to hear things and to smell and to see. Some people go blind. And some people have some internal problems, stomach problems, intestinal problems, cancer, and those kind of things. And here you are now, at age 50, 60, 40, 50, 60, having this conversation with yourself. Was I really in love? Can I keep loving this person who is changing before my very eyes? Somebody who you may have to bathe and change their clothes for them and clean up their stool and change their pampers and feed them because they couldn't feed themselves anymore. When you can do all those things and still have this wonderful feeling in your heart that you call love, then you know you're really in love. Because even though the vow says in sickness and in health, some of us take it lightly, not knowing that, yeah, eventually you're going to be faced with those things. Right? She and I have been married for 43, going on 44 years, like I said. And I'm glad that we're still healthy. I exercise every day. She does like 3 times, 4 times a week now. She's put on some pounds, and I watch her change, and I'm happy to see her changing again before my very eyes, working out. I got a little bit of a belly, not big, but I know I need to work on this. I want to make sure that as I grow older, I do not become a burden onto my wife and onto my children and my grandchildren. I've seen how my parents were in their last years of their lives, and those were lessons for me. Myself and a couple other siblings and my family members were primary caregivers, and it wasn't an easy thing to do. So I'm trying to make sure that the ones in my life that I love will not have to shoulder those burdens like I did. It was a labor of love then because of my parents. And if I have to do it again, I will. But I don't want to be in a position like that where my family have to struggle to take care of me. And my wife feels the same way. So she's been the office manager, well, since I got out of school up until now. I've been retired for 12 years now, but she's at work in the office still as an office manager, where my 2 sons run the practice here in St. Croix. Dr. Sheldon Williams, he's 41. Dr. Jason Williams, he's currently 35. And Cindy and I, we feel that raising our sons to become men and shepherding them through school has been one of the greatest achievements of our lives. We paid their way from elementary school, high school. Yeah, they went to the good schools, what considered good schools, Good Hope Country Day School here, college prep schools. We paid their way through undergrad school and, of course, professional schools where they decided they wanted to become chiropractors, chiropractic physicians like their father. And to me, that was an honor. I thought Sheldon was going to go into neurosurgery. That's what he always talked about. I thought Jay would have made a perfect attorney. But something clicked in their consciousness, and they decided that they'll become chiropractic physicians as well. We had a second practice in Trinidad, and Shell still goes to and fro and take care of patients. And I think his dream is to establish multiple clinics in Trinidad. He and Shell works together here in St. Croix. And it's a joy to see how they've developed and how they live in their lives as men. They're both married. Sheldon's wife is Roxanne Forrester Williams, and Jay's wife is Dr. Lorian Lago. Roxanne is originally from Trinidad, and Lorian Lago originally from Indianapolis, Indiana. Sheldon's 3 children, my grandbabies, Isaiah Zion Williams, he's 10. Jasmine Ali Rain Williams, who is 9. And little Riley Simone Williams, who is 6. And Riley's the one who wears my mother's face, so we call her Little Ursi. And Lorian's and Jay's son, his name is Ezra. Ezra is 3 years old, going on 30, or maybe going on 40. Ezra is one of the smartest 3-year-old kids I've ever come across in my life. Just brilliant. And they think he's my favorite grandchild. All my grandchildren are favorites. But I see myself in Ezra. I see that unvarnished spirit of, he just, when he sets his mind to something, he's going to do it. Sense of confidence in that child. He articulates himself very, very well. I give credit to his parents for spending time with him and teaching him how to speak words and the meaning of words. I do quite a bit of that with him as well when I babysit him. But he's very sharp, very smart. And he's got an iron will. Like, let me do it. I can do it. Whatever it is. Let me help you. I love that about that little man. So with them, the journey continues. And I hope to see them become adults doing the things that they set out to do. I love family. I've always loved my close family unit, my wife, my sons, now my sons and their wives and their children. The same love of family is also extended to my siblings and their family. I couldn't have journeyed the way I journeyed without my siblings. We've lost 2 so far. My oldest boy, Reno, passed away like a decade and a half ago, and Maurice was 28 when he died. Hezron is the oldest one now, he's 70. Noreen is 69. 66. Hezron is 70. No, Noreen is not 69. Noreen is 67. I'm 66. After me is Trevor Wayne. Wayne is he's in a facility on St. Thomas. Trevor. He's always been, from his adult life, he's been schizophrenic. So he has to be cared for in a facility. I became his legal guardian when I came out of school, professional school. He was on the streets and stuff, and it was a sad thing to see. He couldn't care for himself. So one of my patients, who was a judge at the time, said, "Man, we can get your brother off the streets, So how do I do that? What do I have to do?" He said, "I tried everything." He said, "Well, petition the Department of Human Services and become his legal guardian." and ask them or tell them that I suggested they send it through my court, and I'll process it for you. And that's how we got him off the street. So I became his legal guardian, and I called Human Services to pick him up. And he was placed in the facility here, then he was shipped off to Puerto Rico, then Florida, back to Puerto Rico. And during COVID, I caught a flight to Puerto Rico to pick him up there, to bring him to a facility in St. Thomas. And that's where he is right now. He's very well cared for, just turned 65. Everybody thought he was already dead, passed away, but he's doing good. After we there's Sandra, lives in Florida. Daryl lives in Oklahoma. Daryl spent 20-something years in the military. He was also a member of the 82nd Airborne Division. And after that, he worked in the same capacity as an administrator for the military. After Daryl, there's Joy, and then Jennifer, Cheryl. Of course, there's Lisa, another relationship my father had after he divorced from my mom. Lisa lives in California. There's Sharon Cummins Farrington, who my father adopted. She lives in Atlanta. And we have Shirla, who lives in Trinidad, my mother's last child. And Shirla has two daughters, Israel and Zikora. And of course, last but not least is Linnell. Linnell lives here on St. Croix. So she's the only sibling I have living here in St. Croix. But I love all my siblings and their families, man. They're good people. And we still journey together. We stay in contact. We got a thread that we communicate on. We see each other's faces, and then our offsprings have a thread for themselves. The youngsters have their own thread. So they stay in contact with everybody. We had a family reunion about 5 years ago. I think it's time for another one. And hopefully it could be done somewhere here on St. Croix. So some kids who've never seen the islands can come and visit and just see family members.